fun way to get started, and and then a little bit of education there too. So I'll turn the time over to Alan.
Awesome. Thanks, Ian. Patty, just as an FYI, we did that at the summit this year, and Ian had one that was Alan was referred to as which animal in last year's summit, and a lot of people got it right. So,
yeah, thanks. That was a Patty quote.
I'm glad that was memorable.
yeah, everybody seemed to really enjoy that. So great. We'll get rolling today. Thanks for being on. We're looking forward to just talking through system updates for Q3. And so this is obviously ending in September, and then we'll have more updates moving forward. They'll be part of Q4. So this is the agenda. We like to talk through the product vision, talk through new functionality, discuss roadmap, things that we're working on in the short term and the long term, and then review any requests and brainstorm with you as to what we should be thinking about moving forward. Couple of product vision items here. So we're focused on helping organizations understand and improve the patient and staff experience. We achieve this vision by making it easy to locate staff and resources, communicate patient flow needs, and illuminate health center operations. And then as part of that, interoperability or integrations are critical. So this is consistent, but I like to just review it at the beginning of this call, that we're really focused on helping locate where are people in the clinic, helping communicate what's going on throughout the clinic, illuminate, giving you data to know what's happening, and then integrate with other systems. As far as updates for today, a lot on the integration side. And so there's really 4 specific parts. 3 of them are new integrations or extensions that have not been available before. And then the 4th is just an add-on to the existing integrations, especially the desktop application. And then a couple of updates just really on the flow station, how you can access and filter your flow stations, and an update related to the beacons, kind of status on updated beacons. So this will be kind of the new functionality that we'll review. First, I want to talk a little bit about Microsoft Teams integration. The idea here is that it's allowing staff to receive a Teams chat as a notification when an icon is added on sync times. So just like you can receive a text message or a phone call, what this looks like is you receive a chat from a quote bot, which is the Sync Times app that says, as an example, behavioral health is needed in exam 6. If there are multiple people, so just as an example, if there's an entire behavioral health team that is covering an area, then they are each subscribed, and they will receive a group chat with all of them in it. Basically, the Sync Times will create a group chat and then send a notification to that group chat that says behavioral health needed in a specific exam room. And so that's kind of part 2. And then the teams can coordinate from inside that group chat. So as an example, I could respond and say, hey, I'm available, I'll go visit this patient, and that would notify the other people that are subscribed for that notification. This also allows sync times to be accessed from inside Teams. So this is what that looks like inside Teams. Obviously, this person has Teams open. If you have sync times, there's a tab here that says Sync Times app, and you can log in here. And then you can also set up those notifications through Microsoft Teams. This is an example of what those look like. A couple things on this. First off, this does take some admin work. So Jill, you may be already familiar with this, but we've been just coordinating with Jared on getting this up and running. I think there's some permission that seems to be in your guys's tenant that's preventing the app from working for everybody. So we're just working on filtering that out. And then Jill, I know we had talked a little bit about including not just the room, but that string from the flow station as far as which patient. And so that's something we're working on as well. But this does take some IT work just to get built in. And so there's an integration piece that allows Sync Times to connect to your Microsoft Teams environment. We do need an administrator of your Microsoft environment in order to do that. Any questions on Microsoft Teams, what that looks like? All right. Jumping forward, Chrome extension. This is really for our people that are using sync times with a cloud-based EHR or an EHR that they access through their web browser, so Chrome or Edge. Here you'll see from the Chrome Web Store, you can search sync times, then you can say add to Chrome. If you select on the top, there's this little kind of rectangle that shows it's a sidebar. When you select it, it'll pop up this with a drop down that says bookmarks, and then you can hit sync times. And what that'll do is split your screen so you can have sync times within Chrome kind of on the right-hand side. So you can see a flow station on the right-hand side with your Athena Health or your other kind of cloud-based or browser-based solutions on the left-hand side. So a lot of people use the desktop app, which actually shows in front of their browser or in front of their EHR. That still is going to be the recommended case if you have like a desktop client for your EHR. But if you do have a web or a browser-based EHR, this is going to be just a little easier to access. Any questions on that? Very similar in Edge. You'll search on the Google Store, and then at the top it'll say sync times work on Microsoft Edge, get extension, and then pretty similar when you open this little puzzle piece, this extension, you can hit the rectangle for sync times, and again it'll show on the right hand side. So very similar in terms of that workflow. Awesome. So those are some of the integrations that are new this month. The biggest thing that we're working on from a hardware perspective right now is updated beacons. Just by way of introduction as to why and some of the things we're prioritizing. The first is we've had requests for a while now, basically saying, hey, we're wearing like 6 or 7 things, and if the beacon ends up behind the ID badges, then it doesn't work. And if I'm wearing all these different things, then sometimes it just becomes a lot to manage. Yeah, Patty, looks like you've got a couple things there. And so the request was, can we integrate a badge holder as part of the beacon? And so that's the design that we've been working with, is basically making the beacon something that will hold an employee ID badge. As part of that, there's a couple requirements. One is some of your ID badges are landscape and some are portrait. So some are more kind of sideways, like Dr. John Doe on the right here. Some are more the taller ones, like Sarah Baker here. And so that's one requirement, is we need to be able to show them on both sides. The second big requirement is that when your ID badge sometimes flips around, and so most of our health centers will either print on both sides or they'll have 2 badges. So this actually does have a card slot on the front and the back side of it. And so that's an important piece, is that you can have a card on the front and on the back. This will not interfere with your like door opener. So if you swipe your badge to get in a door, that will still work with this. If you have 2 cards and only one of them lets you in the door, you will need that one to be the one that you hold kind of out front. And then kind of last but not least on these new beacons, we wanted to still have the check battery buttons. We have that, but then we also have a staff duress button. And so the idea behind that is that when you're in a room, let's say, and you have a patient who is who's being aggressive and you need some assistance, or even if you're in a hallway and you see a patient who's down, you aren't next to a tablet, there's a button here that you can press that will send out a signal via infrared, the way the beacons always communicate. And then they also have a radio frequency chip that can kind of communicate through walls if you're in an area that doesn't have a tablet or a receiver in it. And so that'll communicate out staff duress, and basically we need staff assistance in a given area or in a given exam room. So those are the basic functionalities here of the updated beacons. The timeline on this is probably mid Q1 of next year. So this is more of just an update as far as timeline. We're working on the electronics manufacturing right now. We're also looking at working on injection molding for the plastic. And so that's the update moving forward. So yeah, Jill just had a question related to so they have something that I don't believe I've seen at any other organizations, but at Grace Health they have it's kind of like a credit card that you swipe for their time clock. And so Jill, there's kind of two ways people are planning on, we've talked about working around that. One is it is pretty easy. It's hard to see here, but you can slide your finger under and you can pull the card out pretty easily. So that'll be option one, is just let people pull that card out. The other option is you can just have another card sitting behind it. This doesn't mean you can't have multiple cards here for if you have, more than just the number that you're seeing here.
Thank you.
Yeah, good question. I think as far as if all clients are using the new beacons, it's not something we're going to mandate, but most clients that we've talked to have been pretty excited. So we're planning on making this the new norm, but still having some of the other ones available if needed. So
how easy is the staff to rest button to push?
Yeah, it's pretty heavy. It's heavier than my car keys. So like locking my car, it's heavier than that. So you're gonna have to very deliberately push that button.
I could just see an accidental like clicking it and everybody running.
Yeah. No, we long story short, we went with some buttons that were very difficult to push. I think it's like 2 pounds of force, which doesn't sound like very much, but when you're concentrating that all on a little tiny button, then it's pretty significant. Yeah, good questions. Awesome. So that's mostly an update. Again, we're really looking at Q1, but this is something we've been any sort of hardware manufacturer does take a little bit of time, just because we're going back to manufacturers and then getting prototypes and testing those, making revisions, and back and forth. So awesome. Next up, I want to talk a little bit, this is on the integration side. This is really simple, but if you have notifications that are active, so let's say I'm an MA in this scenario and I'm subscribed to the MA icon. If you have, let's say, one icon that's up or 3 icons that's up, then you'll see a 1 or a 3 on the tab for sync times. If you're using the desktop app, you'll see the same thing on the sync times app. So if people have that minimized or they're in another tab and they see like a 1 or a 2 there, then the idea is that's just a way for them to see what's open, what's pending from an open notifications perspective. On the flow stations, we've always had this little button that looks like a mute button. Historically, that has just been to mute. And so if you see that icon and it's selected, you'll see it muted, and that will not play any sounds from your flow station. What's new is we've added the ability from there. When you click it, it'll open a tray. And if you click mute flow station, this will be the same functionality as before. It completely mutes it. But you also have the option to say, I just want to mute certain icons, or I want to mute all the icons except for an icon that I care about. So as an example, we talked about behavioral health a minute ago. If I'm a behavioral health provider and we have a sound for that icon, I might mute all the icons except for the one, and I would just select the BH icon in that scenario, which would make that sound still play. This is per device. So, if I'm logged in on my computer, I can set this up, but then you can also set this on televisions, on kind of the dedicated flow stations. So just to give an example, sometimes we have a flow station in the lab or in the pharmacy, and they don't care about all the noise. They just want to be notified when their one thing is needed, but they do want to see when those icons are requested. And so that's the functionality here. If there's an icon here, so as an example, this MA icon is up and I have it muted, then what you'll see on the icon is a little mute symbol like you're seeing here. So when you look at a flow station, if you see that little mute symbol, that means that icon sound has been muted. And if you don't hear sounds, that's deliberate. That's because it's been set that way. If you want to change that, then you can change the configuration here in the muted action section. So this is really just a configuration, allow users kind of to customize their environment a little more, shape it to their workflows. Any questions on that? There's a couple moving pieces there.
I did have one question. Sorry, this is Bria.
Yeah, hey Bria.
Hi. So is it possible for icons that, like some icons, we probably never would want them to be muted because they're really important. Is it possible to have it where maybe you have to get permission to have that particular icon muted or something in that nature? So then that way, it's only being, muted appropriately, kind of,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I don't know if
Yeah,
that makes
yeah.
sense.
I'm imagining like Code Blue as an example. Is that what you're thinking of? Yeah, yeah, great question. So for Code Blue specifically, there is a sound that is going to kind of persist. It's going to ignore that we have it muted, and that is the text-to-speech portion. So when it says Code Blue Medical Exam 3, we're going to kind of ignore this muted section for any of those alerts that you have set to go text-to-speech, if that makes sense. So anywhere that is actually going to say Code Blue in Medical Exam 3, you're still going to hear that sound even if it's muted. For now, we don't have an additional kind of override option, but that's something we can look at. Bria, are there other workflows that you think that would be relevant for outside of kind of the ones that are going to go overhead paging or read out loud the room name?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head.
Okay. Well, we'll start there. If that does become a question or an issue, feel free to reach out. It'll be pretty easy for us to kind of force that. So, hey, Sonia, looks like we have a Jill impersonator here.
Yeah, I know. I took her invite. That's why there's two Jills.
There are two Jills. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
You too.
Great. A couple options. These are just new configuration options for filtering. The first one is when you hit this filter icon to filter your flow station, there's a new checkbox that says hide non-patient rooms. So this would mean if you have a department that has, let's say, 6 exam rooms and then 2 nurse stations or a nurse station and a provider office, if you check that box to hide the non-patient rooms, that would hide the nurse station and the provider office. Those are kind of the non-patient rooms. So this is just if you want to hide those rooms, you check that box and those rooms will disappear. Similarly, on the waiting room, there's a new filter. And what this does is sometimes people on their personal view don't want to view all the patients that are available, or even on the TVs, they don't want to view all the patients that are waiting. They just want to view a handful based on the provider. And so if you select that icon, you'll get a pop-up that'll let you select certain providers. In this case, I have Allen and Chase. And what that'll do is it'll only show patients in the waiting room that are waiting for us. It won't show all patients that are waiting for any provider in that waiting room. Awesome. So those are the updates, a couple configuration things and a couple of integration components there. Any questions before we jump into kind of future facing? Awesome. Let's talk a little bit about things that we're focused on right now in the short term, and then a couple longer term icons. So first up, short term, the duress beacons with integrated ID cards. That's something that we've been actively working on, but we are continuing to focus on. And so in Q4, with the anticipated really having that available in Q1, is the timeline on that. Mostly we're just finalizing some things related to hardware there and a couple electronics components. So that's something we're pretty actively working on in Q4. Overall, kind of as a theme, we're thinking a lot about safety and security type workflows. And so for community health centers that have, if you have other things, other workflows, in your organization, such as if there's code blue workflows or if there's safety workflows. We do have, like Ian showed on the Kahoot thing, we do have restroom pull cords now. We have push buttons that you can deploy into different areas. And we're doing more around this duress and safety. So we've just found that a lot of organizations are really interested in having that ability to send those notifications through the SyncTime system and really consolidate those communications rather than having them go through 10 or 15 different places. And so if you have any workflows that you'd like to share, please feel free to do so. We're working currently with one of our customers on an active shooter workflow that would provide that notifications and then also lock down the screens. And so things like that are kind of actively, we're engaged on those workflows and thinking a lot about them. Duress beacons is a big part of that. Yeah, and I'll just read what Ian just said. Isaac will be reaching out to all of our health centers to learn more about their safety protocols, emergency protocols. We can learn what else we can help with on that front. Awesome. Next, we're working on single sign-on with Azure Active Directory. Most of our organizations, and when I say Azure Active Directory, Microsoft or Entra are kind of other names that you may have heard from that. What this is doing is allowing you to not have a separate SyncTimes password, to just log in through your Azure Active Directory account. This is something obviously that needs to be enabled as an organization, but then it is something that we're working on now. We have kind of the initial basic portion of this done. So it does work. What we're working on now is for all of the other applications. We have obviously a desktop app, you have an iOS app, the Android app. Making sure that this works for all those other applications is the stage that we're on. But currently, if you're in our kind of test environment, we do have this available through the browser. So if you're logging in on Chrome, you have an option to log in with Microsoft if your organization has enabled it. So any questions on that, on single sign-on, or any feedback, findings from other systems that you work with on that? Just looking at the group, I think the only group here that's not on Microsoft, I think Nicole, are you guys on Google Suite? Is that right? It connects you. I think you're muted there.
Sorry. Yes, we use Google.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't use Microsoft Teams.
Yeah, and I think I don't think Google is probably in our initial. There's just not a lot of organizations on Google. So probably focused
Our inner office like chatting system, we use Rocket Chat to chat between all of our clinics.
Cool. Awesome. If that's something that you're interested in, feel free just to reach out to us and we'll get you kind of on the early list. I'm guessing this will take another probably 6 weeks or so before we're really ready to roll it out. But we have some new organizations that are really excited about getting this rolling. So those are a couple of the real short-term things that we're focused on. Obviously, there's going to be little fixes and enhancements as well, but those are the two kind of big ticket items that we're focused on in Q4. Longer term, ongoing, just adding EHR integrations. We're adding pretty frequently. We're adding either new EHRs or additional functionality in those. So I know last time we talked about care gaps. We're adding additional bidirectional interfaces, whereas most of them are just kind of one way. We do have more of you requesting bidirectional interfaces, and those are things we're able to build at this point. So EHR integrations, we're continuing to expand that functionality. Adding some operational data. So right now we have data coming from SyncTimes. We'd like to add some operational reporting that just comes out of the EHR because we already get a stream of all your appointments. So things like no-shows, things like appointment utilization. So to what extent are we filling the appointments that we have? Those are measures that we're thinking about there. Data digest, the idea here being that there are pieces of data that would be really valuable for like a clinic manager, a nurse manager, a COO to access and be aware of on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and just have that delivered to an email via email as kind of a high-level overview that then links into SyncTimes. That's something, again, long-term, this isn't going to happen by end of year, but something that is on our roadmap. And then this expanded reporting is really tied into kind of the operational data. Safety would be the other thing that we're anticipating being a longer-term focus. This is what that single sign-on looks like. So there's just a sign-in with Microsoft. When you hit it, then it brings you to Microsoft. You log in, and then it brings you back to SyncTimes. And that's what we have for presentation for updates. Want to just open it up, feedback, questions. If you don't have any, feel free to jump off. Love to just hear any other thoughts. Awesome. Well, no one's coming off of mute, so I'm assuming we're in good shape. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions or want to work on integrating anything we talked about today.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.